What if I were to tell you that just about everyone is completely missing the point when it comes to Bioshock? Sure, it's just a game, but that isn't the reason that we find it so compelling. I'm not talking about the ready-made themes which have been brought up time and time again, like Ayn Rand's Objectivism, the questions of free will and choice raised by the Little Sisters and Jack's predicament as a mind-controlled errand boy, nor am I talking about the religious connotations of rapture, of Adam and Eve, and that sort of thing. However, all of these themes in aggregate do help point the way to a much bigger message. I'm talking about something which is directly referenced and can be readily identified in the story and main characters in Bioshock, but at the very same time is something that's left for the audience to discover for themselves in a way which, when actually seen for what it is, represents the single most profound message that I've encountered in any video game so far. When Bioshock first launched back in 2007, it completely lived up to the hype. I played this game back then when I definitely was a different person than I am today. And you can enjoy something when you were younger, and then when you return to it later on in life, you can hopefully enjoy it all over again for a completely new set of reasons. Of course, not every game is going to hold up in this way, and not every game is going to have something new to offer its fans at different stages in their lives. Bioshock, of course, stands the test of time in this way, and it also does something which is quite uniquely transcendent, despite it taking inspiration from many easily identifiable sources, something that even the best stories have a difficult time achieving. After deciding to take a very close look at this game, I was quite surprised at just how many videos analyzing Bioshock failed at understanding the single broad and unifying theme which touches upon one of the most fundamental truths of human existence. A truth expressed often enough by the who's who of Western philosophy, yet it's not very well understood, and it certainly doesn't seem to be something that's been found out all too often in this game. This video series is going to delve deeper into Bioshock in a way which has never been done before. In this series, we are going to be taking a major deep dive into the world of Rapture, and along with it, some of the eternal questions of antiquity, which can quite easily eat away at some of our greatest presumptions about our own identity and the world which we inhabit. I should also say that this series is far from a simple retelling of the story in Bioshock, with a few interesting tidbits thrown in here and there. Nor is it a reinterpretation of previous analysis which have come before. While I must acknowledge some of what is already well known about Bioshock, this first must be done, of course, to establish a certain reference point in order to take us further into the uncharted territory of Rapture. This series is going to offer some historical background from the real world, which has obviously inspired much of the story and visual elements in Bioshock. We will also take a look at the overwhelming amount of Greek and Roman mythological references, which aren't often examined that closely, along with a deep dive into the mysticism and the philosophy of antiquity, which Bioshock most certainly draws upon. As this is, of course, another expression among the countless human endeavors, an effort to search for answers to the most enduring existential questions. So among those efforts, whether it be in any type of art or philosophy, I would say Bioshock is definitely deserving of a place up there as a work of art that asks some very deep and meaningful human questions. It should be presumed that you are already familiar with the story before viewing this series. So for those who haven't played this game, please get yourself acquainted with the story by having a playthrough yourself or by watching a few good summary videos on YouTube or elsewhere. If you are engaged in this series and you bring your full attention to it, then this may spark some intense contemplation regarding your own life. So please make sure you are on solid footing emotionally and psychologically before watching this series. Also, I should briefly mention, if you want to watch this entire series right now, and I think there's going to be at least 10 parts, maybe 12, possibly more, then please join my members' website at ReInstallPaul.com, where you can get access to many more early access videos in addition to the Bioshock series. And if you're already a supporter on my members site, thank you very much for your support. And I'm always excited when I can bring you guys a brand new series like this. Almost every observation I'm going to make along the way is building a foundation for what I view is the central theme of this game, or at least what my takeaway is from this incredible work. Toward the end of the series, I will lay out Bioshock's hidden and not very well understood, yet highly important message. Great art is subjective, and it can be appreciated in many different ways. There's no rule book or objective authority in this realm. If you choose to enjoy the great gameplay and leave it at that, that's totally fine. If, however, you find some questions have been raised that you want to explore, that is fine too. It's completely up to you. And if you're watching this series, then chances are both of these choices are a valid option for you. So let's start with the opening scene where our unwitting protagonist, Jack Wynand, is flying overseas to visit his cousins in the United Kingdom, or so he thinks. I think it makes sense that we move along in a more or less linear way in this series so that we can follow the clues as they're revealed to the player and through the eyes of Jack as the story unfolds. And appropriately enough, the iconic and hypnotically suggestive phrase, "Would you kindly," makes an appearance right from the beginning. Jack makes his way to the lighthouse and is greeted with this giant bust, this statue of Andrew Ryan, and this rather garish banner which reads, "No gods or kings, only man." And there's also a plaque in front of the statue which reads, "In what country is there a place for men like me?" Actually, it says, in what country is there a place for people like me? We can all appreciate this statement is hinting at the rejection of religion and the state, along with the embrace of Ayn Rand's Objectivism. However, for the game's creator, Ken Levine, there are other factors which help explain why Ryan left his host civilization behind in the first place. Levine treats character development as something which requires some real-life inspiration, resulting in a character that appears plausible, realistic, and thereby interesting to the player or the audience. Characters have to appeal to or affect the audience in some meaningful way, since it is the audience that is continually asking the author, or they're asking the story, the following question, and that question is, what's in it for me? If the characters fall flat, and you lose the audience. Ryan, having seen the devastation of World War II at the hands of government, which is one of those relatable factors lending to the plausibility and motivation to build Rapture. Of course, prior to 1947, the modern state of Israel did not exist. So in a sense, the Jewish people did not have their very own place to call home. And it's important that we consider every aspect of the rich story elements of Bioshock instead of just viewing the game through only one fixed viewpoint. Like, for example, Ryan being Jewish, right? And so we don't want to exclude other points of view, of course. And Levine himself, of course, says in developing the character Ryan has a mistrust of government, a mistrust of socialism, a mistrust of all those things that led to becoming the guy that he was. Even America was too government-oriented for him. It's why he created Rapture. It's all a response to this thing that happened when he was a kid and because he was Jewish. So we have to factor in all of these things, not just one of them. The reason this observation has any value in the first place is because in order to understand the deeper messages being conveyed in Bioshock, we really do have to appreciate the cultural worldview of its creator. The reason this is important and worthy of our attention when looking into the storytelling elements of this game is because there exists an ageless wisdom within the innermost layers of the story of Bioshock. And this wisdom tradition most definitely has a lot to do with Levine's background. And to understand and appreciate Bioshock at its core, we have to understand the cultural background of its creator. And wisdom itself has been regarded as the root of all virtues, a statement found in the ancient Jewish text called the Book of Wisdom. Surprise, surprise, otherwise known as the Wisdom of Solomon, written sometime around the 1st century before Christ. Being raised in the Jewish tradition, Levine remarks, and I'm quoting, "My rabbi suggested more than once that I should consider rabbinical school." So, and this is a little tongue-in-cheek here, but if you've ever wondered what a game developed by a true sage or maybe a rabbi would be like, I suppose Ken Levine might be the closest we'll ever get to that. All jokes aside, what is worthy of consideration throughout this series is there is a certain unspoken wisdom which pervades the Bioshock series, leaving the player with something more to think about than just a great game experience. What we are about to explore is something that the audience should ultimately make up their own mind about. After spending a considerable amount of time researching this game, I have certainly come to my own conclusions. My hope is that this series will lead to an even more compelling and sincere set of observations and conversations about this incredible game. To be clear, understanding the cultural background of the creator is just one factor among many. While roughly half or more of the characters found in Rapture are indeed Jewish, Bioshock isn't a Jewish video game, whatever that is. People that try to define a work through one singular perspective like that are discounting the many other facets of one's humanity. So remember, we're talking about creating believable characters based on real experiences in real life. The sort of believable characters that are almost always inspired by real people.